Howdy, Tyler Pygott. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing brilliantly, as we say here around these quarters. So I'm excited. I'm excited to chat with you today. I think we have something fun we'll talk about. Um,
Heck yeah.
so what we're going to talk about today is a little bit internal to us in a sense. It's kind of a system that we've thought about and created iteratively, I think, over the last couple of years based on projects we worked on, clients we worked on. And that is called the revenue operating system, and ROS for short. We might reference it that way. So really, I think it'd be fun to talk through that, talk through its implications for clients, its positive impacts, how we've noticed it working, and really why it even exists, right? Like, I think there's a bunch of fancy titles you can put on things and fun titles, and for us that works, but really why we found it necessary in the first place. So let's just dive in and have some fun. So the revenue operating system, and I think it'll be helpful too, I can share a little bit of a visual of what this looks like for us, is just a system that it combines a sequence of brand building and growth marketing in a way that is proven, or at least has been proven for us, to create sustainable growth and sustainable revenue increase over time as it relates to brand and marketing, like we talked about. But I don't know if you have any other thoughts on kind of that broad overview. And like I said, I can share a little bit more of a visual here on what that looks like. But yeah, any thoughts?
Sure. I mean, I'll just back up really fast as far as like, why do we have this? Why did we even think about it? How come, we even just put some into creating some process around this? Yeah. Reality is that as an agency, we help people with lots of different types of, let's call them tactics or initiatives right now. And people, like clients, would come to us and say, hey, can you write new copy for this email sequence, or can you redo this website, or can you, implement, a CRM or a HubSpot platform, or can you rebuild this, and then often we would do that work for them, and then we'd get kind of the end, and you could kind of sense that they were disappointed or that we'd missed the mark. And so I keep saying the word oftentimes. So when we notice that we missed the mark, or that they think we missed the mark, we'd ask some questions to try to just uncover, like, well, how did we miss the mark? And usually what we'd learn from it is that they came to us looking to accomplish something, some objective, some business objective, marketing objective, sales objective, or brand building objective, something to where they had like this thing way out there. And they assumed that whatever tactic they had us work on was going to change that metric, positively impact or whatnot. But they wouldn't necessarily communicate or tell us what that metric was, no matter how many questions we asked in the sales process or any of those types of things. And so we really had to kind of take a step back and go, hey, how do we build a repeatable process, repeatable system within our organization to help people get results? And so how do we run people through a process every time they walk in the door, so that we can actually uncover what they're trying to do? It might be small, it might be big, it might be a small organization, large organization, but that's kind of like the I suppose kind of beginning of how we created the process. Frank, you helped create it, but what is that kind of a good summary? I just wanted to back up real fast and kind of understand why we created it, or let people understand.
Yeah, no, I think that nailed it. I would say maybe one more aspect of it too is like you said, understanding those goals earlier on, but then even the fact that it wasn't necessarily the deliverable itself that was the issue. It wasn't the messaging that was wrong. And I think a big part of that was seeing across the industry. It's not that, I mean, sure, there may be some agencies that, do better work, and however you want to define those superlatives or subjectivity. But the honest truth is that there's tons of great agencies out there, and we're not immune to that. That we like to think that, and it's the reality. But it's more so how those services are working together, I think, to accomplish a goal. So really a big portion of that for us was, just putting those in a sequence. And for us, in the spaces that we've worked in and the services that we offer, it was more so, okay, what are the core tenets of driving revenue as it pertains to brand and marketing? And that's really, so we kind of over time simplified it down to these 4 major categories. And the idea behind that is, let's put them in a sequence that we know can work to actually impact revenue. So I would iterate on it that way, but I think that you dialed a large majority of it. So
love it. Okay, run us through it. What's on your screen? Help us understand.
So revenue operating system, and even the reason why we call that is, like we just said, we hope to start at the high level, understand what we're solving for, and move all the way into consistent, sustainable growth as it pertains to revenue, right? So to do that, though, we really need to understand two things. First and foremost, one is goals. We need some type of criteria early on to know, okay, what is the purpose? How do we know if we're fulfilling that of a brand? And you talk about that a lot. You've talked about that before. Is like, that's really the starting point. It is for us. It is for our clients. What is the purpose of the company? And then vision, and then revenue goals, right? Over the next year, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you actually need to hit in order to say that you've been successful in that space? And so we need criteria at first. We also need to know what we're solving for as brand individuals and marketers, right? If a lot of the issue we're in with these types of constructs is that a lot of those tactics can just go out into the world. It's like, are they even solving for something? We see that in a variety of ways. People, oh, should we be on TikTok? Well, I don't know. Does it solve a problem for it? Is that standing in your way of success? Maybe, but probably not at this point. So really the beginning portion we see on the left there of initial research looks at all of that. What are we solving for? And the last thing I'll mention with that is that a brand needs to observe all levels that may be standing in the way of where they need to get, right? There's obviously something they want. There's obviously something they need to achieve. And if they've done any type of branding or marketing, there may be an area that's actually causing friction or hindering them in able to get there. And so we need to be able to observe that, whether it's us or any company, on all of those levels. That could be, is your image kind of tainted? Do you have a poor image right now in the market? You need to fix that. Maybe your buyer journey isn't aligned. Maybe you're just not as active. Everything's perfect, but you just need to put more content out into the world, So a lot of those things just need to be defined so that the strategy you have, everything you, your company, your teams do from that point is actually solving for something and helping you move forward. So that's kind of the first part. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Ideas.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you nailed it on the head. I mean, we're trying to get more of the lay of the land and what we're jumping into and what they're trying to do. And we're trying to move as fast as we can to get on the same page that they probably spent, potentially years outlining, right?
Sure.
And so that's kind of like that initial strategy piece. I would say, depending on the project, depending on the initiative, depending on what they're looking to do, that strategy kind of process can take how long, Frank? 2 weeks to 4 weeks, somewhere in there?
It could take, to be honest, it could take anywhere from 4 to 7 weeks, usually, depending on, and it depends on the size of the company, right? Yeah. You have a bigger company, there's more to risk. You probably want to do a little bit more market research before you make a decision. If you're a startup with nothing to lose, it's like, let's try it out. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it can depend, but I would say anywhere between like 4 and 7 weeks. If you're working with an agency, could be a good time to be like, hey, we need to go through these things. We need to do our research. We need to figure out what we're working on. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Good question.
Okay. So then let's jump into, so obviously that's the initial research part, but then you've got these 90-day cycles. Mm-hmm. And we started doing these 90-day cycles way back when people didn't want to sign like 12-month or 24-month contracts with agencies. And so really this 90-day cycle started with hey, it's 90 days and we need to make sure we're earning our keep, we're earning our value and the value we're providing to each client, as well as things can change. They can hire different people, or they can change, or like business wise, they can change. And so it's super helpful to like build that strategy and then be able to have those 90-day kind of evaluation, you're implementing things, executing things, but then evaluating it in every 90 days. Talk us through kind of like that process that happens within that 90 days.
Yeah. It's certainly funny because like you said, we originally even started working in this way just because it's like, hey, it's a good fit for clients, and make sure that it's friendly to their budgeting and what they need to do and all these types of things. But we started learning that it's a good system and kind of like reverse engineer that. Well, why is it a good system? And I think there's a couple of reasons that it starts to work. One, and I think this is first, is that no matter who you are, you probably have finite resources. Actually, you do have finite resources. Everyone on the planet has finite resources. And with that, you have to be able to prioritize. And I think that it can be really appealing to be like, hey, we need momentum. Let's just do everything all at once. Let's throw everything at the wall, see what sticks. But in reality, that's just not the way people actually make progress. How you make progress is not focusing on 20 things and just doing a little bit here and there, but really one or two major things, making progress and then moving on to the next thing. And what we started learning is that these 90-day cycles are short enough to be able to think, the brand strategy, that the overall strategy thinks in the long term, the 1 to 2, 3 to 5 years. But these 90-day cycles are like, okay, how do we bite that off now? How do we actually turn those things into actionable, actual and implementable projects? And so for us, that was a huge piece. Like, hey, let's bite off the most prioritized piece of that strategy, implement it within these 90 days, and then circle back and see how things grow or go. And I think a part of that is, like you said, strategy. So you can plan, you can perfect things as much as you want beforehand, and it certainly is valuable. But strategy, no matter how great it is emergent. You think through something, you don't really know exactly how it's going to go until you do it. And the doing part is really where the meat is. But those shorter cycles allow you to constantly revisit a strategy that you've set beforehand and tweak and change as you need to. But then within that third point I would bring up is that you're actually going back to your strategy. I think that a lot of times in projects, you kind of set a strategy, but it's more like a set it and forget it. And then you don't actually go back. A ton of work went into it, and you kind of do the first project and you're like, well, let's just keep going from here. Like, you set out a perfect, like a really well thought through plan. Doing it in these shorter cycles helps you go back to that over and over again, kind of do the checkbox, and then over 3-4 quarters throughout the year, like, hey, we actually made progress here. So I think, that's the model that's been really effective, particularly within client spaces that we've worked within. So those are some things.
No, it's super great. Okay, so I know we need to wrap up here shortly, but one of the things that might be helpful is like, what if we riff for like 30 seconds on the different types of things that come out of the different strategy sessions? Because it can be anything from, hey, we should totally overhaul a website or a digital platform like that, all the way to let's run paid ads on TikTok, or let's run paid ads somewhere, or send out email, or build up your database, or segment your database.
Sure.
There's like a million things that we could kind of be outputted from a deliverable standpoint, but give us like a 60-second run through of like, well, what does it look like to you come with what and you get out of it what?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I like it because brand and marketing strategy could be, those are just industry terms, right? They can be elusive, and that's intentional. Meaning really how that's decided is from the discovery. If what you're struggling with is really just action, then you probably just need more content, more ads. A lot of times though, some clients really need to reposition their whole business to go after a different market. And so some of the things that you might expect in there are ideas for positioning, possibly market research, possibly buyer journeys, creative campaigns. Even if you're going to market with something, how can we create some buzz and PR around this? But at the same time, we're analyzing all levels. This is analysis of your website. Maybe there's one key page that we analyze and show the conversion point isn't strong. So really the output of that is, hey, we need to work on some copy for this. We need to do a little bit of testing in these areas. And it really leans more heavily into performance marketing. And honestly, a majority of the time, it's both and. So we'll look at the positioning and then look at the performance and growth marketing you need to support that, right? Within that, the output, all of these categories are then just how we organize those projects. So if the brand and marketing, that initial research phase shows that you need a creative campaign or to focus on your sales system, then that strategy block starts at the beginning of the cycle and continues all the way through. And we'll usually spend that time figuring out what that sales cycle looks like or what that buyer journey looks like. With that, you then decide it, you create the messaging for it, your digital presence for it, and the technology you need to support it. And then you circle all the way back and say, okay, what was the second initiative we need? Oh, we need to figure out what that creative campaign was. Okay, let's spend the next 90 days building up and launching this creative campaign. So it's kind of a cyclical effect like that.
Love it. This is super helpful.
Yeah.
Well, in efforts of trying to keep this conversation somewhat condensed, because both Frank and I think we like to hear our own voices or each other's voices. I'm not sure. We go for a while.
Yeah.
Super helpful to run through it. I hope that's helpful for other people that are listening. Yeah. Frank, thank you for enlightening us with the ROS.
The ROS. Thank you so much for your time. It's been super fun. If anyone has any questions about it, feel free to let us know. Happy to chat. All right. Bye, Tyler.
See y'all.